1:30 p.m. Eastern. We are not going to have that sun in the sky. This racetrack is not going to be as warm as it will be for qualifying. It is going to be a completely different animal when we go racing here a handful of hours from now.
It is, and you talk to these drivers, that is one thing, especially about Hickory Motor Speedway. Kind of hear the same comparisons about Richmond, where NASCAR was visiting last week, but this is a track that changes a lot, despite the fact that it is not very long. 0.363 miles is all that is around this facility. And Eric, it's taken some changes over this last offseason, particularly the paving of pit road, as well as some areas out on the apron in turns 3 and 4. But again, such a historic facility, and is a track that it doesn't matter who you are or how many times you've even won here. If you can call yourself a winner at Hickory Motor Speedway, particularly against the best competition in the Southeast in the pro late models and late model stocks, it is a special and memorable night for any driver.
Yeah, and one of the things that we'll be talking about, you can see right there in our speed shot, is some of those concrete patches that have filled some of the blemishes that this racetrack has developed, adding to what is already a venue full of character. And we'll be talking about that as the night continues to roll on. We mentioned the rain out that happened at New River All-American Speedway, that it was going to be for late model stocks only. This is our first doubleheader tonight as well, and we got a couple of drivers who are going to try to do both races. They're going to be in for quite the busy work. Let's check in with the third member of our broadcast team, James Pike, who's standing by trackside.
I am here with the number 8 machine, the Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet for Junior Motorsports, which is normally driven by Carson Quapple. But Carson's a little bit busy today. He's making his debut in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Martinsville. So driving this machine behind me today is Mason Diaz, who won the Throwback 225 in the late model stock cars for the ZMAX Car Store here in July. Now, I talked to Mason earlier about his approach to this evening's event, and I asked him mentally how was he coming at it. And he told me earlier in the week I was overthinking it a little bit, but I had a chat with some of my buddies last night, and they reminded me that it's just another race. So that's sort of been my approach to today. He said, I have a job to do, and I am a driver. And so that's what my focus has been on during Friday and Saturday. He said that he had to relearn how to brake this car a little bit. It brakes a little bit differently compared to the late models that he's been using. But beyond that, he wants to bring the car home clean, in one piece, and really focus on speed in the final 25 laps of the race. I don't have to be at the front of the field the whole time, he said, but if I can be at the front from lap 140 to lap 150, I should be okay.
It's going to be a focus for him and catching up with him throughout the week. I know you did it as well, Eric. Mason is somebody that has really tried to make this approach as this is just like any other race that we had, that nothing is different despite the opportunity that's in front of him. And I'm sure he knows this is at a racetrack that he won at last year with Chad Bryant Racing and got his first Cars Tour win. Certainly a big moment for him tonight to be able to pilot that number 8 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet.
Quite the opportunity for Diaz. One of the drivers he's going to have to go through is going to tell us how to get around this racetrack on the other side of this break. We'll be back here at the Hickory Motor Speedway with qualifying on deck. You're watching the Tough Shed 250 on Flow.
My name is Cade Brown. I'm the reigning track champion here at Hickory Motor Speedway, and here I'm going to take y'all for a lap inside the Veloso per your tank lines Chevrolet for Matt Piercy Racing. Here we are coming up to speed for our first lap here in our mock run. Really rough into one, focus on big exit, painting that yellow line, catching this car here in front of us, but should have enough time here. Big entry into 3, focus on big drive up 4, let the car have its head. Back to our first time lap, here we go. Big bumps over 1. Once again, focus on painting the yellow line. Let it drift up to the wall. Big arc trying to get free. There's a lap car, or slow car right there having to get by. Really low exit there. I think we're gonna try to keep doing that. Big arc over the bumps. That car in front of us using the apron to help him turn. Big arc once again, get over the bumps. This is our best lap here, just letting the car have its head up off. You can see we're a little tight here and a little snug, but something to work on. Felt like we had good drive. The bumps are really rough on the wheel. You can really feel it. I feel like they're getting worse and worse as we come, but definitely got a lot of character here, as you can see. This is our second run of the second session. Felt like we made some gains here, but still have some stuff to work on. As you can see, I got a little high into 3 there. A little trouble getting it down, but we were able to drag brake and get it back pointed. Crossing the line. A lot of traffic here in practice today, but managed to make what we could out of the clean track we had. Here we are passing another car. This corner was good right here. Drag brake, got it pointed back down. Big drive up off of 4. So that's what it's like here inside the cockpit, Hickory Motor Speedway.
Man, what a ride around Hickory Motor Speedway for Cade Brown and Matt Piercy Racing, which, you know, got to give a tip of our cap to them for taking us inside. You can see exactly what Cade Brown is dealing with throughout the practice session yesterday, how tough this place is, Eric. And I know we kind of talked about it, some of the concrete patches that have been put down, but I don't think fans really get an appreciation until you see that onboard camera. This is a rough, bumpy racetrack, and you could see all of those movements that he has on that iCam. That's exactly what that driver's feeling behind the cockpit of that late model stock.
And that was just a handful of laps of practice.
Yeah.
That's not, you know, having to endure 150 laps like we're going to do here tonight with the late model stock cars. And you can see there some of what Cade was talking about. Not only the patches there as well, but that's fresh pavement there inside that yellow line that leads you down to the apron. We've seen drivers in the past here try to hook their left sides there to get the car to corner a little better. Apparently, from some of the weekly races that have been held here, we've seen drivers get all the way down there to try to take advantage of that fresh pavement as we inch closer to the start of our qualifying session. Blake, ironically, the first driver out is the only driver who has a pole so far this season.
Exactly the case, and we will see how low drivers are willing to get in the midst of this qualifying session, especially there in 3 and 4 with that new pavement that's down there. If you've been watching some of the weekly racing on FloRacing, you know that drivers will go all the way down there to that yellow line, and for some cases well beyond it, to try and just use that little bit of grip that is with that fresh batch of pavement. But the first car out, driving the number 16, Aaron Sales and Lease for Elliott Racing out of Supply, North Carolina, Chad McCumbee. And boy, what a heartbreaking effort it was for McCumbee and company at Southern National Motorsports Park. Gathered just his 3rd ZMAX Cars Tour pole, and unfortunately had a brake issue that put him out of the running of that race early. In the first couple of laps that he'll put down here for single car qualifying, will clock Chad McCumbee in at a very fast lap time, 14.868, faster than any mock run, Eric, that we saw yesterday. So McCumbee, first lap out, that is a heater for Chad McCumbee, who may have just struck gold once again.
Track record of 14.735. McCumbee close to that. That was Bradley McCaskill back in March of 2019. Next driver on the racetrack. We saw him get swept up, unfortunately, in a big wreck at Southern National, driving the number 1 for TG Motorsports in the ABC hosiery entry. This is Andrew Grady out of Youngsville, North Carolina, and he had himself a moment on his get up to speed lap coming off 4. You see how much the car hops, skips, and jumps its way through turns 1 and 2. Trying to get the car, as Kate Brown mentioned on that onboard shot, pointed in the right direction. And he's still finding the wheel off turn 4. That lap for Grady is actually going to be a tick slower than his warm-up lap as he came through there. Grady is going to clock in at a 15.159. Andrew Grady in car number 1.
And Grady had his hands full, but one driver that necessarily hasn't had her hands full this weekend, and she'll be competing in both the late model stock and pro late model a little bit later on today. And looking at both cars that are identically painted in this number 71 Team Chevrolet Chevy for Hettinger Racing, this is Katie Hettinger, a name that many here in the area, and particularly here at Hickory Motor Speedway, know very well. She's won here multiple times across multiple different race cars, and Hettinger's first effort will be good enough at least for second on the speed charts for now. 15.017 for that of Katie Hettinger. Was very impressive in her run in the late model stocks at Southern National Motorsports Park. Was kind of jockeying for position around the top 10 all afternoon long. It looks like her second lap is not going to be better, at least put her further up the running order. 3 cars to go out so far. Hettinger is second fastest as we look at another very familiar name here at Hickory.
2022 track champion at this racetrack. Has a pole here in Cars Tour competition. Came back in 2016. That's his only career Cars Tour pole, and he's making his 5th, make that 9th Cars Tour start at this racetrack. Driving the High Rock Vodka and GXS Wraps number 37 for Jimmy Moore Racing out of Claremont, North Carolina, is that of Landon Huffman. And Huffman, who had a shocking DNQ at Southern National Motorsports Park, said publicly that he found something fundamentally wrong with the race car when they came out to test after that race weekend, and he's looking for redemption in a big way. His second lap will be 3rd of the 4 cars that have been on the racetrack thus far, a 15.030, further emphasizing the lap laid down by McCumbee. He's the only driver in the 14s right now.
And again, I think you'll notice for these drivers as they're coming out, they're not exiting off of turn 1 and kind of building up a lot of speed on their opening lap. So a little bit less time to get these tires warmed up and up to speed by the time they approach the start-finish line. And well, Eric, we didn't know if this driver would be out here this weekend, driving the number 67 CCS of York County Ford for Bolin Family Racing out of Sharon, South Carolina. This is Cameron Bolin, who suffered an accident about a week ago or so at Caraway Speedway in a Legends car. He injured his leg, and the going theory was that Cameron not only thought he wouldn't make this weekend, he thought he was going to miss several the next few weekends. Again, we had 3 races stacked back-to-back over the next 3 weekends, but Cameron got in the car yesterday, felt pretty good about the race car, and was trying to take care of himself physically. Was able to do it quite well there as he puts down a pretty stellar lap. 14.977, second fastest for Cameron Bolin.
It's a great lap for Bolin, who had to race his way into this event last year by virtue of the LCQ. Here's a driver who scored championship points last season, making his 3rd career Cars Tour at Hickory Motor Speedway. Coming off of a spin and 19th place effort at Southern National Motorsports Park. Lee Polier Performance 03 Toyota with Best Repair Company and Folsom Fence Supply on the side of the race car out of Chesapeake, Virginia. Here comes Butler Queen to complete his first time lap, and he is 3rd the first time through. It's a little bit more than a 1/10 of a second to overtake Chad McCumbee, who appears to be a bit of a qualifying master to start 2024. We'll see what Butterbean can do coming back to the line. And he will jump to 2nd, 26 thousandths off the lap laid down by McCumbee. Brennan Butterbean Queen provisionally to the front row for now.
This next car up was so fun to watch in practice earlier today. Had a pretty good view out the spotter stand with Boo Carlisle. Was watching a lot of these cars going through this area in turns 3 and 4. May not see it in qualifying now, but Conor Jones was all the way down to the bottom, planting that left front down on some of the new pavement that we see out there in turns 3 and 4. We'll see if that number 28 Silver Hair Racing Team Chevrolet Chevy for Pinnacle Racing Group will be fast here this afternoon. You can see the 28 on the side of that car in Pinnacle Racing Group. Many of our race fans familiar with Hickory Motor Speedway will have seen that car competing with Landon Huffman behind the wheel here at this racetrack. First effort for Zilish is going to be 4th fastest, and his second time around is not going to, oh well, he is going to pick up 1 spot. 14.942 for probably one of the more popular names across all of motorsports right now in Conor Zilish.
The biggest story midweek involved this driver right here, and not for the best of reasons. While testing here in the middle of the week, this driver was involved in a very hard crash down in turn number 1 after the throttle hung. They got another car out. Unfortunately, this driver ended up being okay after what was a brutal impact with the turn 1 concrete. Driving the number 08 out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Race cars prepared per your tank lines and Blackgate entry. This is Deke McCaskill, winner here in 2016. And the best news of all was the fact that Deke was able to climb from the car and was okay and able to strap in here in a car which was piloted by Caden Honeycutt in the opening round of the 2024 Cars Tour season. McCaskill wrestles that car back to the line. He will clock in 5th, not the effort that he was hoping for. But keep in mind, McCaskill holds the record for the furthest back a Hickory winner has ever come from. That was 14th back in 2016. And a spin for Gio Reyna while coming to the green.
No contact with the outside wall, but Ruggiero was definitely taking his time more than what we saw other drivers doing off of turn 4 as he was trying to swerve back and forth. We'll take one more look at it as Ruggiero finally gets back up to speed. But again, Ruggiero was taking his time down the back straightaway. It wasn't necessarily a case where he was launching like many of the drivers that we've seen. But surprising, Eric, with the amount of cars that we've seen go out throughout the course of this weekend, Ruggiero has had one of the fastest Toyotas, or fastest race cars, really, even for Lee Pulliam Performance that he's piloting out there today. So we'll see if that spin will negatively affect his qualifying time. And as you mentioned, 18 of 19 drivers that have won here at Hickory in a Cars Tour race have started from the top 5. So Ruggiero, at least right now, is 5th fastest on his first trip around, 15.002 for the number 55 of Giovanni Ruggiero. And in fact, that was his second effort. So Ruggiero going to hurt his effort a little bit here in qualifying as he takes a little bit of a spill off of turn number 4.
Next car has hit to roll. Now they will enter the racetrack on the backside.
I wonder if Gio put in a lap early. That may have been the case. I don't think they were ready to send out the 14 car.
Here's a look at the spin by Ruggiero again. As you mentioned, Blake, trying to get some heat in those tires. That was coming to his up to speed lap. He went for that slide there and negatively impacted him on the stopwatch in a big way. This is a car that had a sub-driver in it at Southern National. Same story here. This entry usually piloted by that of Jared Fryer. How about a welcome back to a 2-time winner of the Bobby Isaac Memorial. Did so here in 2019 and 2020. Driving number 14 for Jimmy Moore in Racing and the Solid Rock Carriers Ford. Here is Sam Butler making a return to Cars Tour competition. He times in 3rd fastest, but there appeared to be a little bit of smoke trailing on the right side of that race car the last time down the backstretch. Does it appear to be hurting him on the stopwatch as Butler gets back to the throttle off turn 4. He'll come to the line here, and like he never skipped a beat. In his return to Cars Tour competition, he sits provisionally 3rd. Lap of record would be a 14.924 for that of Sam Butler. To get under the 15-second bracket.
A lot of drivers that have been around Hickory Motor Speedway for a long time. Sam Butler, that is definitely a name that I think we're going to become very familiar with here on the Cars Tour side of things overnight, and really has jumped in a race car that he hasn't been in quite some time, and yet jumps right in with the best in the business and puts it P3 provisionally for now. We turn things over to the number 24 Liberty Puzzles Toyota out of Parker, Colorado. This is Cody Dster, which, as you mentioned, a couple of the drivers that unfortunately did not make the starting field at Southern National Motorsports Park. This was one of them in this number 24 car of Cody Dster. First lap across, he's been fighting a tight handling race car all weekend long. And see right there on the speed charts, 15.280 for Dster. And second time through, he's going to pick up about a 10th.5, but he's just going to best the lap put down by Andrew Grady. So Dster right now 10th provisionally out of 11 so far to go out.
Next driver on the racetrack, a late add to the field. Scheduled to be here on the day of practice, but he had a race to run. Went out to, it was an Anderson Speedway, Blake, I believe.
It was.
Ended up capturing a victory there in his efforts last night. Came out here this afternoon at a racetrack in which he knows well. Multi-time winner at Greenville Pickens, Myrtle Beach. Added another trophy from Anderson just last night. In the Taylor Satterfield Racing number 40 out of Jefferson, Georgia. This is, in fact, Taylor Satterfield coming down to complete his first time lap. First lap around for Satterfield will be 12th of the 12 cars that have been out so far. A 15.642 for that of Satterfield. Again, time to beat continues to be the 16.868. McCombie, who was the first car to hit the racetrack in this qualifying session. And Satterfield will pick it up on his second lap by about a quarter of a second, but remains 12. 12 cars have been on the racetrack so far.
Coming off of turn number 2 now, we mentioned a couple of drivers that will be pulling double tonight in both the late model stocks and pro late models. This driver is going to be one of them right now behind the wheel of his number 44 Jones Utility Chevrolet for Mike Darn Racing. Out of Fredericksburg, Virginia, this is the 44 of Conor Jones. Again, was scheduled to be a part of some activities at Southern National Motorsports Park, but had some commitments, including the Arca Menard Series, that kept him out of some of the race cars we had across both of those weekends. And a very fast first lap for Jones. In fact, ties him for 4th with Connor Zilish at a 14.942. Maybe just a little bit of a bobble in turns 3 and 4 may have slowed him down, but he is going to tie Chad McCombie. A pair of ties for Connor Jones, 1st and 5th, and now is tied with McCombie. Now, when we run into these situations with ties, we go by what Racing Monitor shows us. So for now, it is McCombie in 1st, separated by 0.001 of a second.
How could you not love the car store, huh? As James Pike mentioned in our lead-in, this is perhaps the biggest story of the afternoon. This car has gone to victory lane here before with that of Carson Quapple. Did it a year ago. This car went to victory lane last time out at Southern National Motorsports Park. But now the driver out of Manassas, Virginia, is holding the steering wheel for the Bass Pro Shops number 8 for Junior Motorsports. This is Mason Diaz, with what he has said is an incredible opportunity, being that there was a lot of question marks about what his season was going to look like this year. He's been calm, cool, collected, composed as he comes to the line here to complete his first timed lap. We'll wait for timing and scoring to register here as Diaz is going to come down and roll off. I'll refresh my scoring monitor here. Diaz 11th on the timing charts there. But as he said before, the goal is to get through the race. Right now, he is sitting in 11th position out of the 14 cars on the racetrack so far.
To have a lengthy conversation with this driver before he rolled on out for qualifying here this afternoon. And if there's anybody that knows how to get around Hickory Motor Speedway, well, is this number 15 Leisure Time Chevrolet of Ryan Millington. Now, unfortunately, it has just been bad luck that has derailed some great efforts that he's had in the past in the Z-Max Cars Tour. And for Millington now, first lap across, 7th fastest, 14.996. Wheeling it off of turn 4, but we've seen that not matter so much for some drivers, but it looks like for Millington, not able to pick up on his second effort. But nevertheless, Millington, somebody that I think we'll have to be watching throughout the course of the night.
The second number 15 car in tonight's field happens to follow Millington out onto the racetrack for Thunder Road Harley-Davidson pole qualifying. This driver out of Mechanicsville, Virginia, also in an RNS Race Cars entry. He's driving the WG Speaks Ford. This is Logan Clark, who's making his 11th career Cars Tour start and his second here at Hickory Motor Speedway. Ran a throwback race here last year, finished 23rd. Goal was to run all the laps. He was doing just that. Clark comes through here to put a lap on the board. 15th will match the car number, ironically, on his first time session. Clark navigating that car off of turn number 4 to come down and complete his efforts in qualifying. And the second lap will move him up just shy of the top 10. Clark with a 15.024 moves up into 11th position.
The four previous track champions here at Hickory Motor Speedway are set to compete tonight, including this driver right here, driver number 95, Hefner's Towing and Recovery Chevrolet, now for AK Performance Racing. So a bit of a shift in teams for Jacob Hefner, but still bringing out his black and green number 95 out of the racetrack out of Dallas, North Carolina. For Hefner is an 18th place finish in the season opener at Southern National Motorsports Park. In fact, needed a provisional to make the show, but he's not going to need one tonight. 14.979 for Jacob Hefner's first lap around Hickory. Second lap, is it going to be better? And indeed it is. Jacob Hefner up to third, 4/1000ths of a second shy of the front row that is deadlocked in a tie to 14.868. So Jacob Hefner, who we know is somebody, Eric, you give Jacob track position, he is going to find his way up to the front at the end. Great qualifying effort for that number 95.
Solid run for Hefner. This is a driver here who had a solid run qualifying back at Southern National Motorsports Park. In fact, he ran quite good in the race as well. An Oval 1 Toyota for Kevin Harvick Incorporated, Hickory, North Carolina. Car number 29, this is Brent Cruz. Started on the front row, led the most laps before missing a shift on a late restart, and fell back to 6th. Did down to Cruz. Running full time for this team, and he cracks the top 5 on his first lap around. Cruz needs 39 thousandths of a second to overtake the deadlock amongst the front row right now in Chad McCumbee and Conor Jones. Cruz letting it all hang out, coming to the line. He will go faster, but not enough. He'll jump to 4th. Brent Cruz with a 14.889. Slots in the outside of number 2 in the big stand.
And Eric, I think as we're seeing these drivers go out again, this is a brand new S22 tire that these drivers and these teams are getting accustomed to. It's a harder compound than what we've had in the past, and it seems like we're seeing a lot more of an effort of drivers trying to cool off and keep them up before taking their qualifying time. Even saw it a little bit out of this driver before taking his lap, driving the number 2 Crossroads Harley-Davidson Chevrolet for the Carroll Speed Shop out of Oak Ridge, North Carolina. This is number 2 of Brandon Pierce, who, among many things he has on his mind, including trying to run his best lap possible, which puts him 18th fastest. Well, he said, guess what? I already got a spot in the trailer set up for me to kick up my feet while we have a little bit of downtime and watch NC State and Purdue a little bit later on. Big Wolfpack fan is that of Brandon Pierce, and he is going to pick up here a little bit on his second lap, 15th fastest. Now for Brandon Pierce, we'll clock him in at a 15.051. That number 2 for Carroll Speed Shop.
Good run for Brandon Pierce. His first attack at this racetrack. The Carroll Speed Shop umbrella for the Veteran Cars Tour driver. Here's a racer who impressed with a lot of pace. Top 5 qualifying effort at Southern National Motorsports Park. Got caught up in a crash, but bounced back to finish 9th. This driver out of Ontario, Canada, driving for Chad Bryant Racing. This is Tron Labovich, making his 2nd ever Cars Tour start. He does have some history here, though. He ran 2 past National Super Late Model races, finished in the top 15 in both of them. We'll see what Tron can do in the late model stock car as he comes down to complete his first timed lap. Labovich 19th on that first go-around of the 20 cars that have been down the racetrack so far. Labovich hooking the apron there with the left side tires to come through.